Okay, number 228, Androgyne III. Androgyne III. It's by Magdalena Abakanowicz. She's Polish. This was done in 1985. Burlap, resin, wood, nails, and string. Her art is influenced, as is any artist's art, by the environment in which she lived and continues to live. She grew up in Poland, in Warsaw. She was growing up when she was young, I think around the age of 9 or so. There was the Nazi invasion. She was from not just a wealthy family, but a noble family, which, you know, obviously things were made difficult for her and her family. One of the things that happened to her family is when the Nazis invaded, they burst into her family's house and blew her mother's arm off. And so we often see figures in her work that are missing limbs. Not every single figure, but certainly in this figure we have a legless figure here, and the legs, instead of legs, it's up on this obviously wooden log platform of sorts, and it has these logs that come out, and so those might be there to suggest legs. You'll notice they're wrapped at the end. Also, that wrapping would be suggestive of a wound covering. If you look carefully at the back here, we can see not only is the posture very hunched over, but we see what look to be like scars. So you might think about the wounds of Christ, you know, being whipped. So of course, after the Nazis came then communism, which also offered its own version of oppression, and so this was difficult for her with respect to becoming an artist, because in order to become an artist, of course, you had to go to the officially state-sanctioned school, which required you to work in social realism, you know, in terms of depicting, you know, happy workers and crowds and everything's great under Joseph Stalin, et cetera, et cetera. But she had to do it in order to get her license, in order to become a professional artist, and all those things were you know, mandated. When she did become a professional, she decided that she wanted to work with tapestry and fabric. She'd actually started some of that in school, but she had to finish out with the social realism. And some of the things that she did, she started with these things called abacons, which are these very, very large textile pieces that are sculptural as well, which are, you know, depict not really human forms, but forms suggestive of the natural world. They could also, sometimes they depict, you know, something that might be worn, but they're definitely not functional. But to me, they're, you know, they're just clearly sexual to me. So I'm not surprised that AP didn't choose them. But, you know, fabric is what she worked with initially, which certainly leads us to our piece, which of course is it's sculpture, and so it's hard. Not sculpture, so it's hard, but it's hard. The burlap there is not a soft burlap; it's been hardened with resin. So it was obviously made from some kind of cast of something resembling a back. So it's, you know, it's not something that you can just put on. It's not soft at all. So I mentioned that she has a piece at the Master Sculpture Center, and here it is. It's just bronze crowd. So she depicts human figures that are faceless, headless. We just focus on the bodies themselves, and these bodies are often hollow, if not always hollowed out in some way. So we can see, if we're looking at them front on, we see the full body, but if we go behind, we see that they're you know, there's nothing there. However, each form, you might think, oh, these are all the same form, it's just a repetition of the form, but no, these are all individualized, and so that should remind you of something as well. Wanted to give a you know, closer up view. I'm not quite sure if you can see this, but clearly the bronze mold from which the bronze piece was made, or the mold from which the bronze piece was made, involved burlap as well. We can see the texture definitely depicted here in the arm and in the leg, and we see it also repeated in our piece, Androgyne III. Speaking of Androgyne, all her pieces are depicted as genderless, as androgynous, because she wants you to focus on the humanity of the piece rather than the gender. And if you think about the vast majority of human figural works in terms of sculpture that we've had, that they really do tend to focus on, because it has that 3D element, on the gender, on the curves or in the angles of the human body. But that's not what she's focusing on, because she wants you to focus on the individual humanity of the pieces. And they're pretty much always mournful, as you can see here. Let's see if there's anything else I'm forgetting. Sorry. Yeah, so you might think about this as, about her work as focusing on the dehumanization of individuality. Yeah. Okay, so there's also a video that I wanted to show. All right, so body parts appear as hollow shells. We have creases and ridges and veins of the hardened fiber surface. They assume an organic characteristic that suggests skin, right? An aged, worn, abused skin from that burlap. So here we go with a video, which is kind of obnoxious, I gotta be honest with you, but it gives good information. Oh, wait. Actually, I'm just going to post the video separately, so I don't think it's terribly long. Yeah, it's just like 3.5 minutes, so you should be able to watch that. Okay, thanks very much.